Identical twins of Reddit. What's the most embarrassing situation where you've been mistaken for your twin? Story 1. My twin brother recommended a restaurant to me, said that he and his wife went there all the time, good food, really friendly staff, so I took my wife there. Food was as advertised, but the service, somewhere between cold and openly hostile, like they resented our presence. I was puzzled by the contrast between what I'd heard and what I saw. Suddenly from the front of the restaurant, an explosion of laughter, and much rapid talking. Suddenly the waitress is there, smiling and all, just as my brother and his wife walk around the corner. They thought my brother was cheating on his wife with some blonde. Yeah, it's funny now. It's kinda wholesome that they cared so much. Story 2. Oh god. In college, I was working on a group project and randomly assigned teams. We had an Asian team member and it was a pretty big class of about 60 students. During the first class after being assigned groups, we broke up into our teams to begin planning, and I noticed that the Asian kid looked a bit lost, so I waved him over, figuring he had gotten confused among all the moving around. Anyway, we began delegating our work and responsibilities and exchanging contact info, etc. Everything was going well, until we were joined by a real Asian group member who was running late. At that point, everyone in the group pretty much busted up laughing. Story 3. Asian college twin here. It's all too common. I'd have to say the best one is actually me and my twin. Not embarrassing, but pretty good nonetheless. There's this corridor or hallway thing that we happened to walk through at the same time. I thought it was my reflection from the window panes from the door, but as I walked toward the door, I was like, what the f is wrong with this window? When we were no 5 feet from the door, we realized what was going on. We pretty much doubled over laughing, thinking the same thing. Thinking our reflections had different clothing and a reflection that walks differently. Turns out I just saw my twin. Twinception confirmed. Story 4. I went to a party once and my bald identical twin bro had yet to arrive. His girlfriend was already there, so I gave her the obligatory friendly hug, then sat in the other side of the room to hang out. This other guy, a mutual friend of his and hers, kept staring at me, then staring at her with this real nervous what the f look on his face. For about 15 minutes, every so often, this guy would look around nervously and then furiously text on his phone. Then my brother arrives. He kisses his girlfriend and says hi to everyone, and this guy blows up. Jesus! Was no one going to say anything? What the hell was that? I thought he grew a full head of hair in a day. Looks like the hair transplant was very effective. Story 5. My twin brother had a huge stash of adult mags in his closet, and I always wondered where he got the money to buy them. One night, I walked into a nearby convenience store with some friends, and the guy behind the counter threw me out. I had no idea why. When my friends asked, he told them he had caught me stealing adult mags the week before. Story 6. Not a twin, but my brother and I look startlingly similar, even being almost 2 years apart. I've gotten harassed by teachers, faculty, and other members in grade and high school for being in the wrong room, or this isn't your lunch schedule, or had people get furious that I didn't know what they were asking for or about. Homework, sports practice, whatever. What takes the cake is I had leg surgery in high school and somebody called me out for faking my injury because he saw me at practice at night, and in a wheelchair during the day. Don't flip somebody out of a wheelchair at school. Seriously. Who fakes broken legs to be cool? Sounds like a trashy school. Why do they care so much to talk someone down but not ask and clarify before that? Story 7. I was dating a girl in college. The first time I went to her house, she opened the door. I told her I liked what she did to her hair and kissed her. She kissed me, we went inside. She then yelled, "Your boyfriend is here." They were weird girls. Story 8. Not a twin, but dated one of 2 identical twins. They used to play pranks on me where they would pretend to be the other one, or switch places to test me. That all stopped when I walked up to the wrong one, grabbed onto her butt, and told her some of the very explicit things I'd planned for her booty later that night. Needless to say, one twin found it hysterical, while the other one less so. Pretty much for the following 3 years we dated, the other twin used to say, "Good night and guard your booty," every time we went to bed. Story 9. Not an identical twin, but married to one. When I was dating my wife, she and her twin sister had a bunch of friends over. I walked over to her and put my arm around her and she leaned into it. I leaned in for a kiss, but then she pulled away. I thought, well, maybe she's not comfortable with a little peck in front of her friends since we hadn't been dating for too long. Then I scanned the room and made contact with my girlfriend. I looked back in awe that I had my arm around her sister, who was messing with me until things went too far. I then tucked my tail between my legs, walked over to my girlfriend, put my arm around her and said, "Well, will you give me a kiss?" I'm not gonna lie, he kinda nailed that. Smooth save. Shh, here's a little secret for you. This video is sponsored by none other than me and my team at Rufus Rugs. We're the masters of creating custom, hand-tufted rugs that capture who you truly are. Whether you want to transform one of our intriguing thumbnails into a rug, for a friend, obviously, or you're craving a room makeover with awesome anime-inspired designs, we've got your back. Oh, and did I mention, each and every rug is skillfully handcrafted by me and my friends. No BS dropshipping gimmick here. You'll be blown away by your rug. Hit the first link in the description to learn more. Story 10. Not an identical twin, but I worked retail for a few years and had a lot of regular customers. This one girl would come in and she was awesome. She loved the product, always made conversation over what she was doing, what she had done, and we always connected. Sometimes she would initiate the conversation, sometimes I would. Never really learned her name though, which is pretty embarrassing in sales. About a year and a half after knowing her, she walks in one day and I waved to her, and she excitedly waves back. All of a sudden, a perfect clone in a similar outfit but different colors walks out from behind her. My jaw literally dropped. I was in disbelief. I had been talking to two twin sisters thinking they were the same person for over a year. When I asked why they never pointed it out to me, one goes, "Well, you just seemed to talk to me like you knew me, so I went with it." Surreal experience, honestly. Story 11. Embarrassing, I guess, more just totally terrible. We were out with friends and my twin decided to go to one of the back rooms which was set up for a private party with bottles of spirits everywhere. Well, he decided to take a bottle and run off. Cut to me in the club and some bouncers come up to me and take me to a back room saying, "Oh, you're done for, mate. We saw you on camera stealing a bottle, blah blah." I had absolutely no idea what he was talking about and they thought I was just playing dumb to get away with it. "Stop it, mate. We got you on camera." Somehow finally convinced them I had a twin, so they fished him out and they eventually say we need to come back tomorrow to settle the damages. That didn't happen. Fast forward to about 2 weeks after I'm staying at my girlfriend's mom's house and get woken up by her mom at 6 a.m. "Hargit, the police are here." What? Got arrested and put in the police van where my twin is already sitting. Interviews, long waiting, disappointing polystyrene lunches. Got off with a warning. Thanks, John. Story 12. Not a twin, but a mistaken identity. I was working at a local grocery store as a cashier. My next customer was a lady, maybe mid-30s. She walked through my line, looked at me and said, "When did you start working here?" Me. About a year ago, I guess. Lady. "Does your dad know you work here?" Me. "I sure hope so, since my mom works in the pharmacy." A look of pure shock ran across her face as she gasped. "Oh my god, I thought you were my son." I did not know how to react. I just stared at her. "You look just like him. This is weird." Me. "Well, a little, since you are his mom," I laughed. I never saw her alleged son to know if we looked that similar, and every time after that she would come to my line and call me Junior. That was when it got weird. Story 13. When we were in the 6th grade, my brother decided he wanted to stay at home because he wasn't feeling well. So far there had never been a day where only one of us was at school, but I didn't think anything of it. I was walking down the hall and all of a sudden, I was pulled in by a teacher whom I had never seen before. And she started yelling at me, and I mean yelling at me, because I had skipped her class and I had the audacity to walk in front of her class right after. It was really awkward to just say, I have an identical twin brother. My name is John." She, of course, thought I was making a terrible excuse and I had to go get another teacher that knew I had a brother to come tell her that I was telling the truth. She never bothered me again. Other than that, we've never had a super embarrassing story. That must have felt so satisfying. But again, I still don't get why teachers don't even ask others or at least consider the possibility that someone has a twin. I also don't get how you can keep watching this video without leaving a like on this video and subscribing to the channel. Story 14. My grandmother was an identical twin. Her sister passed away before I was born. She didn't like to tell stories from when she was little, but she did tell me one mistaken identity story. She was in their bedroom one night when they were really young and saw her sister through the window. She started talking to her sister to see why she was outside at night. Then she realized it was her reflection. My grandmother had mistaken herself for her twin. One day I was looking through her photo albums and came across some pictures of her twin in her coffin. That picture haunted me until I actually had to see my grandmother in a coffin. Story 15. My grandmother, who passed away unexpectedly about 13 years ago, had 9 sisters. She wasn't that old, nor was she sick, so her passing really shocked the whole family and really affected me. She and I lived in Australia, while the other remaining 8 sisters lived in Greece. About a year after she passed away, I went to Greece to meet family and to see her sisters, who I had never met. I didn't know their names and had only seen pictures of them when they were teenagers. They were now 70+ years old. I'll never forget the feeling of walking into a shop and seeing my recently passed grandmother standing in the doorway there to greet me. Or who I thought was my grandmother. Her sister looked the same, sounded the same, wore the same perfume, and hugged the same. I broke down and freaked out a little. For a split second, I thought my grandmother was alive and then realized she wasn't, and that pushed me over the edge. I cried for a long time. Story 16. I have 2 younger cousins who are identical twins. They grew up being the boys, and for pretty much all of their childhood they did everything together. They are a lot alike, so would always get mixed up, sometimes even by their parents. After hitting their teenage years, they both actively started wanting to separate, to the point where they have radically different haircuts. One has a man bun and attends separate high schools. They're tired of being so closely associated. Because of that, they don't like to introduce themselves as twins, and I doubt they feel the desire to volunteer that information either. I'm sure this is the case for many other identical twins as well. Story 17. When I was in grade school, a boy there had a crush on my twin sister who was in his class. He would sometimes get us mixed up and talk to me as if I were my sister. This wasn't anything new. I just played along and relayed the information to her later. One day, though, he came over and started rubbing my back as I was eating in the cafeteria and telling me how pretty my hair was. He left and I just thought it was weird. I was 6 and shrugged it off. As I was walking out of the cafeteria, I saw him in the hall, and he walked over and grabbed my shirt from the front and looked down at my chest. He went, "Ooh," and I ran away. I was very confused and talked about it later at the playground with my friends. They told me to tell the principal, who said he would handle it. 10 minutes later, I see him being dragged out in the playground to say sorry. We were pulled out of that school the next year. 6 years old? Jeez. The opposite gender was still icky and had cooties when I was that age. Story 18. A family friend was in the Air Force, and while in boot, she became mortal enemies with another woman who would constantly try to one-up everyone and win any argument for whatever reason. Our friend found her sleeping around with some other officers a few years later and got her discharged from service because of it. 10 or so years after that, our friend's twin was walking around town to the opposite side of the country, and this woman barged across the street and started berating her for ruining her life and all the stuff, and the twin just laughed it off because she knew it was probably her sister's fault. Story 19. I went through basic training in SOI with a pair of identical twins. Anyway, one was a total dimwit and one was kind of meek and timid. So the dimwit was stationed out in Hawaii and got a non-judicial punishment and restricted to base. The weekend this happened, our company first sergeant, the one who restricted him to base, flew out to California and saw the identical twin. This ends with our company's first sergeant choking this kid at a shopping mall while screaming at the twin. Eventually, the twin explains himself and everyone has a good laugh. Story 20. Not a twin, but my boyfriend is. We were walking to class when a girl approached us. She confronted my boyfriend about why he stopped talking to her or hanging out with her. At first, it was extremely awkward for me, but I figured out what was going on and laughed it off. Turns out she was a crazy girl that his brother saw or talked to one time in their dorm laundry room and didn't talk to again after that instance. Story 21. My father spent a year abroad before returning to enroll in the same college as his twin brother. The first few days were pretty standard. Acquaintances with my uncle mistaking my dad for him, business as usual. That was until one girl approached him, publicly, mind you, and with a wink said, "You were really great last night. I gave your number to a few friends, I hope you don't mind." Naturally, my dad went from there to immediately seek out and congratulate his brother on his good fortune, and hopefully share in the spoils. On the way, he found himself receiving a disproportionate level of sly smiles and sidelong glances from some of the groups he passed. By the time he finally found my uncle, he was thoroughly perplexed. Surely his brother couldn't have been this lucky. They were good-looking guys, but this was just ridiculous. My uncle flushed and faltered when confronted by my dad. He stammered and tiptoed around the issue before my dad finally got it out of him. How had he managed so prolific a penile degree? He hadn't. Turns out my uncle had spent all his money in the first few weeks and had turned to desperate measures for cash. He had been working as a doing mostly private parties, but naturally, word got around. So for the rest of the year, my father had to contend with the fact that a good number of people on campus had effectively seen him unclothed. A prolific penile degree. That is a brand new phrase for me, and it's beautiful. Story 22. Not an identical twin, but I do have a twin sister. I'm a guy. We both have names that start with B. This was about 5 years ago. She had a few hot friends in high school, and they would always come around the house and hang out. If I was there, I would always joke around with them or playfully flirt with them. Nothing crazy. However, one of her friends was always a little bit more flirtatious with me than any of the others. Never thought anything of it until I received a text from her one day out of the blue. "Want to chill tonight?" I was so taken aback that I really didn't know what to do. Did my sister know her friend had asked me to hang out? Should I tell my sister? I texted her friend back, still a bit surprised but curious. "This is kind of unexpected. What would you want to do?" She answered, "Just need to get a few things off my chest. You're going to be home at 7. I can just head over then?" Me. "Yeah, that's fine. I should be home. What brought this on so suddenly?" Her. Just a lot of feelings and stuff." Me. "Okay, well, just text me when you're here." My heart is racing at this point, and I decided I'd see how things went that night and talk to my sister later. So I'm waiting for her to get there, and then all of a sudden I hear her downstairs. I head down the steps to go get her, and she's talking to my dad. I say hey and ask her how she is and all that, and say we can head out back to talk. She asks if everything is all right. I, a little confused, then asked what made her want to hang out tonight and why she waited so long. She gets all red and opens her phone real quick and quickly realizes what happened. She texted me instead of my sister. Story 23. If you're a twin, you're bound to eventually have a few embarrassing stories. My whole life has been a system of awkward hugs or ducking a kiss from a girl and yelling, "Wrong one, wrong one." Brother's girlfriend jumps in your lap while you're watching a movie. It happens. My personal favorite has to do with situations that have occurred due to mistaken identity with my brother now that he's a Marine officer. I joined the Peace Corps shortly after he became an officer. Yeah, we're a sitcom setup, and worked as a teacher in Eastern Europe. Over drinks at a dinner during my service with friends of my host family, one of the gentlemen tells me that he used to be a Soviet helicopter pilot and asks me if I'd like to see his uniform. He brings down the full outfit in all its metal glory. We're almost exactly the same size, and he lets me try it on. Thinking how cool this is, I post a picture online wearing it to show everyone. My brother calls me a few days later pissed as hell because during a screening for a security clearance, someone finds pictures of him wearing perfectly tailored Soviet regalia. He yells at me for getting brass up his ass and complains that he might get his clearance postponed. We still laugh about it. Story 24. It was during those awkward middle school days when my twin sister got her first boyfriend. We had our first 8th grade dance and thought it would be so funny to switch places with each other to see if her boyfriend noticed. It didn't, and proceeded to go for the first big kiss. Didn't go so well. They broke up and it was an emotional 2 weeks for my poor little twinnie. Oh, middle school. She was probably like, "How dare you try to kiss the person who looks exactly like me?" Story 25. We're not identical twins, but my sister, 2 years older, and I were in the same grade for reasons I won't get into. Many people thought we were identical twins because we both had short brown hair and didn't wear makeup, which I guess made us the same person. At the end of senior year of high school, we were going through a line of teachers we had over the previous couple of years, shaking their hands and thanking them for teaching us, etc. The school required it, and my sister was right behind me. I shook one teacher's hand, a teacher neither I nor my sister had all throughout high school because she worked in a faculty we never got involved in. She smiled and said, "Bye, Sarah," and I stepped away. Then my sister reached out to shake her hand. The teacher stared at her. She turned around to look at me, then looked between us. "I thought you were the same person." Story 26. Not me, but a good friend who is a twin. I only know one of the twins well and have spoken to the brother maybe twice in 15 years. My friend is the wild twin and the brother is very laid back. I live in a big town of 100,000 plus people with plenty of pubs and clubs. My friend ended up getting barred from most of them over a period of a few months and then started drinking out of town. His twin didn't know how bad it was until he was out one night with his wife and the bouncers let him in anywhere, much to his wife's fury. Twin tried to tell the bouncers, "It's not me, it's my twin." Didn't work at all. Eventually settled when he rang his brother, made him come into town and go around every bar to the bouncers and prove he wasn't the band twin. They took note of his ID, kept the ban on for my pal, and let his twin go on enjoying his night. One bouncer joked with them both and said he had heard that story hundreds of times and never thought he would see the day it was true. All his friend needs to do is to take his brother's ID out with him and he could get into all the clubs he's banned from. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy what's your most embarrassing doctor's office story. Story 2 made me cringe. See you in that video.